Christ our Passover lamb. Why do we call him the Passover lamb? I know Paul calls him that, but why? One reason was because he shed his blood on Passover. Not only did he shed his blood on Passover, but he shed his blood on a tav. And if you haven't paid any attention to any of my other videos, you wouldn't know that a tav is the 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And its pictograph symbol is the cross. So just like the Passover lamb, Christ's blood was placed on the tav. So if you don't look at Christ's crucifixion in the realm of Passover, you will misinterpret a key phrase. That phrase is the preparation day. In some scriptures, it says the preparation day of the Sabbath, or for the Sabbath, or the preparation day of the Passover. And because we only assume there's only one Sabbath, and that's Saturday, we assume that Christ died on Friday, which is not true. You can't get 3 days and 3 nights for him dying on a Friday. And I know people mean well, but that's not true. The term preparation day, if you look at it in the context of Passover, if you go back to Leviticus 23, you around verse 4, starting off, you'll find out about the Passover, that it starts at twilight on the 14th. And if you keep reading verse 6, it talks about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, this Feast of Unleavened Bread is where it's a holy convocation. You can't do any work. There's a lot of things you can't do. And you have to prepare for this day because it's a Sabbath. It's not like the regular Sabbath that's weekly, but this is a high Sabbath where you got to prepare for it. Why does this even matter? This matters because we have people dogging out Christians based on a misinterpretation of a phrase. Now, many people still won't believe me, but if you go on from John 19, it started with verse 14 where it talked about the preparation day and the preparation day of the Passover. And you go to John 19 and 31, it kind of clears everything up. And you'll find out that this was a high Sabbath. It wasn't a regular Sabbath. It wasn't a weekly Sabbath, because there would be no reason to even bring up something that happens every week if you prepare for it every week. There would be no reason whatsoever for the gospel writers to write this down. But it would be a reason to write it down if it was a high Sabbath, to tell you that this is what's going on. Because he has to die on Passover. His body has to be taken off the cross before sundown, because that's the next day. And there are scriptures that talk about that. But also, the next day is a Feast of Unleavened Bread, where there's no work. There's nothing you can do. You have to be still. So the preparation day for this Feast of Unleavened Bread is actually the day Christ died, that Passover. The preparation day of the Passover. It is. That's the day he dies. So why does this matter? It matters because you'll find out there were 2 Sabbaths during the crucifixion time where Jesus is dead for 3 days and 3 nights. If Christ says he died and he was going to be in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights, you need to bank on it. You want to know why this is important? There are 3 crosses. Christ dies, or Christ hangs on the cross for 3 hours in the day and 3 hours of darkness. Pilate says he finds no fault in him 3 times. And also, there are 3 festivals that are going on at the same time. It's the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and the Day of First Fruits. You can find this in Leviticus 23, starting with verse 4. All 3 of these are together. They're not separated. But the deal is, the Passover starts on the 14th. The Feast of Unleavened Bread is the 15th. The Bible does not tell you that the Feast of First Fruits, or the Day of First Fruits, is the 16th or the 17th. It doesn't say that. Matter of fact, the reason why it doesn't say that is because the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread can be any day of the week. It could be on a Monday. It didn't matter. But there are two festivals that are pointed out on specific days of the week. And that day of the week is a Sunday. And those two festivals is the Day of First Fruit. That's the day Christ got up out the grave. That was on Sunday. You don't have to believe me. You can look at Leviticus 23 and keep reading. You'll find it. And also, it's called Shavuot, or we call it in English Pentecost. That's on a Sunday. You don't have to believe me. Count 7 Sabbaths from the Feast of First Fruits. So that's 49 days. And then the 50th day is a Sunday. So there are no pagan roots dealing with Christ getting up from the grave and us celebrating Christ on Sunday. Matter of fact, it's an appointed time. The Day of First Fruits was appointed by God, and it's on a Sunday. Pentecost was appointed by God. You had to show up, and it's on a Sunday. Okay, so why does this all matter? Because everybody's trying to figure out why we celebrate on Sunday, whether Jesus died on a Friday. He didn't die on a Friday. It's impossible. You can't get 3 days and 3 nights. You can't. You just can't. And Christ is a man of his word. And I know there will be people saying, I'm wrong. Don't believe me. Go to Scripture and figure it out for yourself. The preparation day of the Passover is the day Christ died. It's still the 14th. It's the daytime. It's again. Remember the way God does time. There's evening, then there's morning, then the first day. Remember, Passover starts in the evening. So I hope this blessed you, and I'll speak with you again.